Queen Zixara of the Hegemony stood on her palace balcony, watching the twin suns set over the capital city. The purple light reflected off her silver skin as she thought about her strange marriage. 2 years had passed since she married the human named Marcus Chun, and she still did not understand him. The marriage had been arranged by the council for diplomatic reasons. Humans were new to the galactic community, and the hegemony needed to show friendship with Earth. Marcus was supposed to be a cultural expert, someone who could help bridge the gap between their two species. When he first arrived, Zixara expected a typical human. Loud, aggressive, always trying to prove themselves like the human traders and diplomats she had met before. Instead, Marcus was quiet. Very quiet. He spent most of his time in the palace archives, reading old books and translating ancient texts. The royal librarians loved him because he treated their precious manuscripts with such care. Marcus would sit for hours, carefully copying symbols from one language to another, his dark hair falling across his forehead as he worked. Sometimes, Zixara would find him there late at night, surrounded by papers and half-empty cups of tea. "Do you not get tired?" she asked him once. Marcus looked up from his work and smiled that gentle smile he always gave her. "I find it peaceful," he said. "These old stories help me understand your people better." The Queen's advisors did not like Marcus much. General Korthek, her military commander, called him weak behind his back. "A real human warrior would demand respect," Korthek said. "This one acts like a servant." But Zixara found Marcus's quietness interesting. He never asked for anything except access to the library and a small room where he could work on what he called his hobbies. When she looked into that room, she saw strange human devices scattered on tables. Metal boxes with blinking lights, sheets covered with numbers and symbols she did not recognize. Marcus said they were just simple tools to help him with his translation work. Marcus also loved gardening. He had asked permission to plant a small section of the palace courtyard with earth plants. Zixara often watched from her window as he knelt in the dirt, carefully tending to tomatoes and herbs. His movements were slow and patient. The palace servants were confused by this. Why would a queen's husband work with his hands like a common farmer? "On Earth, many people grow their own food," Marcus explained when Zixara asked. "It keeps me connected to home." During formal ceremonies, Marcus stood beside Zixara's throne in simple clothes. While other diplomatic consorts wore bright colors and expensive jewelry, Marcus preferred dark, plain outfits. He never spoke unless spoken to directly, and even then his answers were short and polite. Some visiting ambassadors forgot he was even there. The only time Marcus seemed different was when he cooked. Zixara discovered this by accident one evening when she smelled wonderful scents coming from the royal kitchen. She found Marcus teaching the cook how to make something he called stir-fry. His movements were quick and confident as he chopped vegetables and seasoned the pan. For a moment, she saw a different person, someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "You are good at this," she said, tasting the finished dish. The flavors were unlike anything in hegemony cuisine. Marcus shrugged. "I learned to cook when I was young. Had to take care of myself." That was typical of how Marcus talked about his past. He gave short answers that did not really explain anything. Zixara knew he had worked at a university on Earth before coming to the hegemony. She knew he studied languages and cultures. But when she asked about his family or his childhood, Marcus would change the subject or find an excuse to leave. The most puzzling thing about Marcus was how he acted during military meetings. Whenever the council discussed defense matters or threats to the kingdom, Marcus would politely excuse himself. "I do not understand such complicated things," he would say. "I will be in the garden if you need me." General Korthek was always happy to see Marcus leave. "At least he knows his place," the general would grumble. "Humans think they are great warriors, but this one runs away from talk of battle." But Zixar noticed something strange. Sometimes, just before Marcus left these meetings, she caught him looking at the tactical displays with sharp, focused eyes. The look only lasted a second before his usual gentle expression returned. She wondered what he was really thinking in those moments. One night, Zixar found Marcus on the palace roof, looking up at the stars. She had not heard him come up there, but somehow she was not surprised to find him. Marcus often appeared in unexpected places at quiet hours. "What do you see up there?" she asked, joining him. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he pointed to a cluster of bright stars in the eastern sky. "Those are the outer rim systems," he said. "Beautiful from here." Zixar was surprised. Most people, even educated ones, could not identify star systems just by looking. "How do you know that?" Marcus seemed to realize he had said something unusual. His shoulders tensed slightly before he relaxed again. "I studied astronomy in university," he said. "Just a hobby." But there was something in his voice that made Zixar wonder. The way Marcus said, "outer rim systems," sounded like someone who had been there, not someone who would just read about them in books. As the months passed, these small moments added up. Marcus knew too much about galactic geography for someone who had never left Earth before coming to the hegemony. He understood military terminology, even though he claimed to avoid such topics. Sometimes, Zixar caught him listening to intelligence reports with an expression that was far too knowing for a simple scholar. The Queen began to suspect that her quiet husband was hiding something important. But she had no idea how important it really was, or how soon she would find out the truth. The alarm started screaming at dawn. Zixar woke to red lights flashing in her bedroom and the sound of emergency sirens echoing through the palace. She jumped from her bed and quickly put on her royal armor. Beside her, Marcus sat up slowly, looking confused and sleepy like he always did when woken suddenly. "What is happening?" Marcus asked, rubbing his eyes. "Emergency alert," Zixar said, rushing to her communication panel. The screen showed General Korthik's worried face. "Your Majesty, the Void Swarm has broken through the outer defenses. They are heading straight for the capital system." Zixar felt her blood turn cold. The Void Swarm was every civilization's nightmare, a race of creatures that consumed entire planets, leaving nothing behind. The hegemony had been tracking their movements for months, but the military had said they were still years away. "How many ships?" she asked. "Over 1,000 biovessels, my queen. Maybe more. Our scouts barely escaped to bring us this news." Zixar looked back at Marcus, who was now sitting on the edge of the bed with a strange expression on his face. He was staring at the communication screen with sharp, focused eyes, the same look she had seen during military meetings. "Marcus, you should go to the safe rooms with the other civilians," she said. But Marcus was not listening. He was studying the tactical display on her screen with the intensity of someone reading a favorite book. "General," he said suddenly, "what is your current fleet positioning?" Both Zixar and General Korthik stared at him in surprise. Marcus never spoke during military communications. Excuse me?" General Korthik stammered. "Your fleet positioning," Marcus repeated, standing up and moving closer to the screen. "How many battle groups do you have in the inner system?" "3 full battle groups, but I do not see why," Korthik began. "And your defensive platforms around the capital planet?" 12 orbital stations, but human. This is not." "Show me the current formation," Marcus interrupted. His voice had changed completely. Gone was the soft, hesitant tone Zixar was used to. This was the voice of someone giving orders. Korthik looked to Zixar for guidance. She nodded, too curious to stop what was happening. The tactical display changed to show the local star system. Red dots marked the approaching Void Swarm, while blue symbols showed hegemony forces. Marcus studied the formation for exactly 10 seconds before speaking again. "You have made a critical error," he said. "Your battle groups are positioned to defend fixed points, but the swarm does not attack fixed points. They flow around defenses like water. You need to reposition immediately. How do you know about swarm tactics?" Korthik demanded that Marcus did not answer the question. Instead, he pointed to different areas on the display. "Pull your second battle group back to these coordinates. Move the orbital platforms into a triangle formation around the planet. And recall all long-range patrol ships immediately. I will not take orders from a human academic," General Korthik shouted. "Then, you will lose this battle in the next 4 hours," Marcus said calmly. Something in his voice made the room go quiet. Zixara stared at her husband, seeing him clearly for the first time. This was not the gentle scholar who translated old books. This was someone who understood war. "General," she said slowly, "do what he says." "My queen." "Surely you cannot." "Do it," Zixara ordered. Korthik's face showed anger and confusion, but he followed orders. Within minutes, Zixara could see ships moving on the display, taking new positions based on Marcus's instructions. "We need to get to the command center," Marcus said, pulling on his clothes quickly. "The real attack is about to begin." As they rushed through the palace corridors, Zixara noticed that Marcus moved differently now. His steps were quick and purposeful, his shoulders straight. Guards and servants stared as he passed. They had never seen the quiet human move with such confidence. The command center was chaos when they arrived. Officers shouted reports while screens showed the approaching enemy. In the middle of it all, General Korthik stood, looking lost and overwhelmed. Marcus walked straight to the central command console without asking permission. His fingers moved across the controls like he had used them 1,000 times before. New displays appeared, showing information that Zixara did not even know their systems could provide. "First wave incoming," Marcus announced. "Enemy bioships are splitting into attack groups. They are trying to divide our attention." "How can you read our system so easily?" an officer asked. Marcus glanced at him. "Standard Galactic Defense Protocol interfaces. Every military in the known galaxy uses the same basic design." That was when Zixara realized the truth. Marcus did not just know about these systems from books. He had used them before, recently. "General Korthik," Marcus continued, "order your fighters to ignore the smaller bioships. Focus all firepower on the large command vessels. The swarm cannot coordinate without them." "But our doctrine says," Korthik began. "Your doctrine is wrong," Marcus cut him off. "I have fought the swarm before. Trust me." The room went completely silent. Even the alarm sound seemed to fade away. "You have fought them?" Zixara whispered. Marcus looked at her with sad eyes. "Your Majesty, we can discuss this later. Right now, we have a battle to win." On the main screen, the first swarm ships entered weapons range. Zixara watched as her fleet followed Marcus's orders, concentrating fire on the larger enemy vessels. To her amazement, the tactic worked perfectly. As the command ships died, entire groups of smaller swarm vessels became confused and disorganized. Marcus continued giving orders with calm precision. He seemed to know exactly what the enemy would do before they did it. Under his direction, the hegemony fleet fought with a coordination they had never achieved before. But Zixara could barely focus on the battle. She kept staring at her husband, trying to understand who he really was. The man standing at the command console bore no resemblance to the quiet scholar she thought she knew. This person commanded a galactic defense like he had been born to it. "Second wave approaching," Marcus announced. "This will be the real test." As new enemy contacts appeared on the screen, Zixara realized that everything about her marriage had been based on a lie. But right now, as Marcus saved her kingdom with knowledge he should not possess, She found herself not caring about the deception. She just wanted to know who she had really married. The first wave of the Void Swarm was destroyed, but Marcus showed no celebration. He stood at the command console, studying new readings as more enemy ships appeared on the long-range sensors. The command center buzzed with activity as officers followed his orders without question now. Even General Korthik had stopped arguing and was simply doing what Marcus told him to do. "Your Majesty," Marcus said without looking away from the displays, "the main force will arrive in 18 hours. We need to use this time to prepare better defenses." Zixara watched him work, still trying to process what she was seeing. Her quiet husband was running the defense of her entire kingdom, and he was doing it better than her best generals. "We also need to evacuate the outer colonies," Marcus continued. "The swarm will hit them first to gather resources for the main attack. How do you know all this?" she asked. Marcus finally turned to look at her. His eyes showed exhaustion and something else. Sadness, maybe guilt. "Can we talk privately, Your Majesty? There are things I need to explain." Zixara nodded and led him to a small meeting room off the command center. Once they were alone, Marcus sat down heavily in a chair and put his head in his hands. "I have been lying to you," he said quietly, "about almost everything." "Tell me the truth," Zixara said, sitting across from him. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, tired and older somehow. "My name is Marcus Chun, and I was a translator and cultural expert. That part is true. But that was not my main job." He looked up at her. "I was Admiral Marcus Chun of the Terran Defense Force. I commanded the Third Fleet during the AI Wars. Before that, I led the human forces in the Centauri campaign." Zixara felt her world shift. She had heard of these conflicts. Everyone in the galaxy had. The AI Wars had been a massive conflict where humanity fought against rogue, artificial intelligence systems that threatened multiple star systems. The Centauri campaign was humanity's first major military victory after joining galactic civilization. "You were Admiral Chun?" she whispered. "The one who defeated the AI fleet at Proxima Station?" "Among other things," Marcus said bitterly. "Yes, but Admiral Chun disappeared after the wars ended. The reports said he had died in battle. I let them think that," Marcus said. "I needed to disappear. I needed to stop being a military commander." Marcus stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, they could see ships moving across the sky as the fleet repositioned for the next attack. "Do you know what it is like to send people to die?" he asked without turning around. "To make decisions that kill thousands of people, even when those decisions are right?" Zixara did not answer. As a queen, she made difficult choices, but she had never commanded an actual battle. "In the final battle of the AI Wars, I ordered an attack that I knew would cost us half our fleet," Marcus continued. 300 ships. Over 50,000 crew members. But it was the only way to win. His shoulders tensed. "After the battle, I stood on the bridge of my flagship and watched the rescue team search for survivors. So many good people died because I gave the order. They called me a hero, but all I could think about were the faces of the crew members who would never go home." Marcus turned back to face her. "I submitted my resignation the day the war ended. But Earth's government would not let me retire. They said humanity needed its best military minds for future conflicts. They wanted to send me to command new fleets, fight new wars." "So you disappeared," Zixara said. "I changed my identity and volunteered for the cultural exchange program. I thought if I could find a quiet place to work as a translator, maybe I could forget about all the death and destruction. Maybe I could just be a normal person who grows vegetables and reads books." Zixara was beginning to understand. "That is why you always left during military meetings." "I could not stand to hear about strategy and tactics," Marcus said. It brought back too many memories. But I also could not completely stop being what I was. Those devices in my workshop, they are not translation tools. They are military communication systems. I have been monitoring galactic threats and keeping Earth informed about potential dangers, including the Void Swarm. I have been tracking their movements for 8 months, Marcus admitted. I sent warnings to Earth and tried to get information to your military through unofficial channels. But I did not want to reveal myself unless it was absolutely necessary. Why did you tell me your real name was Chun if you were hiding your identity? Marcus smiled sadly. Chun is a very common human surname, like calling yourself Smith in Earth languages. I thought it would help me blend in. I never expected anyone to connect a quiet translator named Chun with Admiral Chun, who supposedly died years ago. They sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, more ships were moving into defensive positions. Zixara could see the lights of orbital stations being repositioned according to Marcus's instructions. Are you angry? Marcus asked finally. Zixara considered the question carefully. I should be. You have been lying to me for 2 years. You married me under false pretenses. I know, Marcus said. If you want me to leave after this battle... No, Zixara interrupted. I am not angry. I am confused, and I feel foolish for not seeing the truth earlier. But I am not angry. She stood up and moved to the window beside him. I married a cultural expert who was quiet and kind. I find out I actually married one of humanity's greatest military heroes who was quiet and kind. The kind part did not change. The marriage contract said you were getting a simple academic. Marcus pointed out. The marriage contract also said I was getting someone who could help me understand humanity better, Zixara replied. I think I am about to learn more about humans than I ever expected. On the communication panel, General Korthik's voice crackled through. Your Majesty, we need Admiral. We need Marcus back in the command center. The enemy is moving faster than predicted. Marcus straightened up, and Zixara could see him transforming again. The gentle scholar was disappearing, replaced by the military commander who had saved human space from destruction. One more question, she said as they prepared to leave. What was your rank before you became Admiral? I started as a lieutenant when I was 18, Marcus said. I became the youngest Admiral in human history at age 28. How old are you now? 34. Zixara stared at him. Her quiet husband, who looked so young and harmless, had been commanding space fleets since before she was crowned Queen. As they walked back to the command center, she realized that everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong. They were not just aggressive traders and diplomats. They could also be brilliant strategists who hid their deadliest skills behind gentle smiles and gardening hobbies. The main force of the Void Swarm was coming, and her kingdom's survival depended on a man who had spent 2 years pretending to be someone completely different. But as she watched Marcus take control of the command center again, Zixara felt something she had not expected: pride. She might not have married the man she thought she was getting, but she was beginning to think she had gotten someone much more interesting. The main Void Swarm force arrived 6 hours ahead of schedule. Marcus had been working without sleep, preparing defenses and coordinating with fleet commanders across the system. Zixara watched from the command center as he transformed the hegemony's military into something she had never seen before, a precision instrument that responded to his every order. Contact, the sensor officer announced. Multiple bioship formations dropping out of hyperspace at the system edge. The main display lit up with red dots, thousands of them. Zixara felt her heart sink as she realized the true size of the enemy force. It was 3 times larger than their worst estimates. Marcus studied the formation patterns for exactly 15 seconds. Then his expression changed, becoming harder and more distant than Zixara had ever seen. General Korthik, he said calmly, order all civilian ships to begin immediate evacuation. They have maybe 2 hours before the outer system becomes a combat zone. Admiral, our current defensive position should hold against even this number, General Korthik said. He had started calling Marcus Admiral after learning his true identity. No, it will not, Marcus replied flatly. This is not a standard attack pattern. They are using a new strategy, something I have not seen before. On the screen, the swarm ships were spreading out in a complex formation that looked almost like a flower opening. Instead of charging straight at the defenders, they were surrounding the entire system. They are planning to attack from all directions at once, Marcus continued. Our fixed defenses cannot cover every angle. We need to fall back to a mobile defense. Fall back? Korthik sounded shocked. You want us to retreat? I want us to survive, Marcus said. Sometimes survival requires giving up territory to save lives. Zixara watched as Marcus began implementing a fighting withdrawal, something she had read about in military histories, but never seen in practice. Under his direction, the hegemony fleet began pulling back toward the inner system while maintaining defensive formation. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid, Marcus muttered, too quietly for anyone else to hear. But Zixara was standing close enough to catch the words. The first real engagement began when the Phadean swarm forces reached the outer planet colonies. Marcus had already ordered evacuations, but there were still mining stations and orbital facilities that could not be moved. Admiral, the mining platform at Keo 7 is requesting support, a communications officer reported. Marcus looked at the tactical display. The mining platform had 8,000 workers, but it was completely surrounded by swarm bioships. Sending help would require pulling ships away from the main defensive line. Negative, Marcus said after a pause. All ships maintain current positions. Sir, there are people on that platform. I know exactly how many people are on that platform, Marcus replied, his voice getting colder. And I know that sending ships to help them will get those people killed along with the crews of our rescue ships. Zixara watched the display as the mining platform signal went dark. 8,000 lives, gone in seconds. She looked at Marcus and saw that his jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscles standing out. I hate this, he whispered. The pattern continued for the next 4 hours. Marcus saved what he could and sacrificed what he had to. When a group of civilian transports got cut off by enemy forces, he ordered a fighter squadron to create a diversion. Half the fighters died, but the transports escaped with 20,000 civilians. When the orbital shipyard at the fourth planet came under attack, Marcus made the decision to abandon it rather than risk the battle fleet trying to hold an indefensible position. The shipyard contained enough materials to build 50 new warships. But Marcus chose to save his current ships instead. You are destroying my kingdom piece by piece, General Korthik said angrily after Marcus ordered another withdrawal. I am saving your species, Marcus snapped back. Would you prefer that I let pride get everyone killed? But Zixara could see that each sacrifice was tearing Marcus apart inside. Every time he made one of these impossible decisions, he seemed to age years in minutes. This was why he had tried to retire, why he spent 2 years hiding in a garden, translating poetry instead of planning battles. The crisis came when the swarm forces finally reached the capital planet. Despite all of Marcus's preparations, the enemy had too many ships and too many different attack vectors. The defensive fleet was being overwhelmed. Admiral, we are losing the orbital platforms, an officer reported. Enemy bioships are breaking through the defensive grid. Marcus stared at the display for a long moment. Zixara could see him calculating options, running through possibilities in his head. Finally, he turned to address the entire command center. I need volunteers for a special mission, he announced. We are going to ram the enemy command ship. The room went quiet. "Sir, that is suicide," General Korthik said. "Yes, it is," Marcus agreed. "That is why I'm asking for volunteers, not giving orders. We need to take out their main coordination node, and conventional weapons are not getting through their defenses." "You cannot do this yourself," Zixara said, realizing what Marcus was planning. "I have to," Marcus replied. "I am the only one here with experience in close-range bioship combat. I know their weaknesses. Then I am coming with you." "Absolutely not. You are my husband and my military advisor," Zixara said firmly. "Where you go, I go." Marcus started to argue, but stopped when he saw the expression on her face. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Fine, but we do this my way." 20 minutes later, Zixara found herself on the bridge of a fast attack cruiser, heading straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Marcus had taken personal command of the ship, and his crew followed his orders without question, even though they knew it was a suicide mission. "Target the bioship's neural cluster," Marcus instructed the weapons officer. "Ignore the armor and go for the control center." The enemy command ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of their cruiser. As they approached, smaller bioships swarmed around them like angry insects. "All power to forward shields," Marcus ordered. "This is going to hurt." The cruiser shook as enemy fire hammered against their defenses. Sparks flew from control panels and the lights flickered, but Marcus kept them on course, guiding the ship through the enemy formation with skills that seemed almost supernatural. "Impact in 30 seconds, the navigation officer announced. Zixara looked at her husband, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. This was who Marcus really was. Not the gentle scholar, not the quiet gardener, but a man willing to die to protect others. A man who had been carrying the weight of command and the guilt of necessary sacrifices for most of his adult life. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Giving up your peaceful retirement?" Marcus glanced at her and smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him since the battle began. "No," he said. "Some things are worth fighting for." The cruiser punched through the bioship's outer hull and exploded deep inside its neural center. The massive enemy vessel convulsed and died, taking its coordination network with it. Zixara woke up 3 days later in a medical bay, surprised to be alive. Marcus was in the bed next to her, covered in bandages but conscious. "The escape pods worked," he explained weakly. "Barely. Did we win?" "The swarm fleet is retreating. Your kingdom is safe." Zixara reached over and took his hand. "What happens now?" Marcus was quiet for a while. "I do not know. I cannot go back to pretending I am just a translator. Not after this." "Good," Zixara said. "I have seen who you really are, and I like him better than the man you were pretending to be." Outside their window, the reconstruction of the capital system was already beginning. It would take years to rebuild what was lost, but they had survived. And Zixara had learned something important about both her husband and humanity in general. Sometimes, the most dangerous people were the ones who looked completely harmless. 3 weeks after the battle, Zixara found Marcus in the palace garden. He was kneeling beside his tomato plants, carefully checking each one for damage from the battle. Several of the greenhouse panels had been cracked by debris, but most of his earth plants had survived. "The council wants to give you the Star of Valor," she said. Settling down on a stone bench nearby, Marcus did not look up from his plants. "I do not want it. I know. That is why I told them you would refuse." Zixara picked up a fallen leaf and examined it. "They also want to make you Supreme Military Advisor with full command authority over the hegemony fleet. And I told them you would refuse that too." Marcus finally looked at her, soil still on his hands. "You know me well." "I am beginning to," she said. "Though I suspect there are still things you have not told me." Marcus smiled slightly and returned to his gardening. Probably. But the important things are out in the open now. The past 3 weeks had been strange for both of them. Once the immediate crisis was over, Marcus had tried to retreat back into his quiet scholar persona. But it no longer worked. Too many people had seen him command the defense of the kingdom. His secret was completely blown. The Galactic Council has been asking questions, Zixara continued. When they learned that the famous Admiral Chun was alive and living in my court, it caused quite a stir. The human ambassador was very embarrassed. Earth's government is not happy with me, Marcus admitted. I have been getting messages demanding that I return to active duty. What did you tell them? That Admiral Marcus Chun died in the Void Swarm battle. The man who survived is just a cultural expert named Marcus, who happens to know something about military tactics. Zixara laughed. Do you think they will believe that? Probably not. But it might buy us some time to figure out what comes next. What came next was proving to be complicated. Word had spread throughout the galaxy that one of humanity's greatest military heroes was married to the Queen of the Hegemony. Diplomatic relations with Earth had suddenly become much more interesting. Other alien governments were reassessing their opinions of both humanity and the hegemony. The Centauri Federation sent a message yesterday, Zixara said. They want to discuss a mutual defense treaty. Apparently, they are very interested in having access to human military expertise. They want to hire human mercenaries, you mean? Something like that. The Rigel Consortium made a similar offer, and the Vegan Empire has requested a meeting to discuss strategic partnerships. Marcus stood up and brushed the dirt from his hands. They are all scared. The Void Swarm was supposed to be unstoppable, but we beat them using human tactics. Now everyone wants to know what other military secrets humanity is hiding. Are there other secrets? Marcus gave her a look that was both amused and mysterious. Zixara, what you saw during the battle was just standard human military doctrine. Every Earth fleet commander learns those tactics in their first year of training. The implications of that statement hung in the air between them. Zixara had been impressed by Marcus's brilliant strategy and leadership during the crisis. To learn that this was considered basic competence by human standards was both exciting and terrifying. How many humans like you are there? She asked. You mean retired military officers hiding as civilians in alien governments? Marcus grinned. Or do you mean humans in general who could do what I did? The second one. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering how to answer. Earth has about 50 active fleet admirals right now. Any one of them could have handled the swarm attack. Most of them could have done it better than I did. Zixara felt a chill run down her spine. The galaxy's political balance was about to shift dramatically, as other species realized what humanity was capable of. We should probably discuss how this affects our relationship, she said. Carefully, Marcus sat down beside her on the bench. What do you mean? I married a cultural expert. Now I find out I am married to one of the galaxy's most famous military leaders. Other governments are going to assume that this was planned, that Earth arranged for you to marry me as part of some long-term strategy. Was it planned? Marcus asked. Was what planned? Our marriage. Did your council know who I really was? Zixara considered the question seriously. I do not think so. But now I am wondering if Earth's government knew. Sending their greatest admiral to marry an alien queen would be a brilliant political move. Trust me, Marcus said. If Earth's government had planned this, they would have sent someone much more diplomatic than me. I have a reputation for ignoring orders when I think they are stupid. Is that why you disappeared after the war? Part of it. I also just wanted to be somewhere quiet where people were not constantly asking me to solve their military problems. Zixara reached over and took his hand. How is that working out for you? Marcus laughed. Terribly. I have been getting messages from 12 different star systems asking for military advice. The governor of Proxima Centauri wants me to design new defensive protocols. The mining guild wants me to evaluate their security arrangements. Even some trade organizations are asking about convoy protection strategies. You could ignore them. I could. But some of these requests are from places that really need help. There are a lot of small colonies and independent systems that have no real defenses. If the Void Swarm had attacked them instead of the hegemony, millions of people would have died. Zixara could see where this conversation was leading. You want to help them? I want to retire and grow vegetables, Marcus said firmly. But I also cannot ignore people who need help. What if we found a middle path? What do you mean? Zixar had been thinking about this possibility for days. What if we created a new position for you? Not military command, but something more like consulting. You could help other governments improve their defenses without having to actually command their fleets. Marcus looked interested. A civilian advisor position? Exactly. You would still be my husband first, but you could also use your knowledge to help protect people without having to carry the full weight of command. That might work, Marcus said slowly. Though Earth's government would probably still try to interfere. Let them try. You are married to a queen now. That gives you certain diplomatic protections. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the rebuilt capital city. In the distance, they could see construction crews working to repair the damage from the battle. The kingdom was healing, but it would never be quite the same. There is one more thing we need to discuss, Zixara said eventually. What? Children. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That is a rather sudden change of topic. Not really. Our marriage was originally for diplomatic purposes, but things have changed. If we are going to make this a real partnership, we should talk about what that means for the future. Do you want children? Do you? I have never really thought about it, Marcus admitted. My life has been focused on military service for so long that I never considered having a family. Wow, you have time to think about it now, Zixara said. Human hegemony hybrid children would be quite remarkable, and politically very significant. Marcus groaned. Please do not tell me you want our children to be diplomatic symbols. I want our children to be whatever they choose to be, Zixara said firmly. But yes, they would probably end up being politically significant whether we want it or not. That is a terrifying thought. Most good things are a little terrifying. Marcus stood up and offered her his hand. Come on, I want to show you the new herb garden I am planning. As they walked toward the greenhouse, Zixara reflected on how much had changed in just a few weeks. She had started with a quiet husband who translated books and avoided politics. Now she had a partner who could save kingdoms but still wanted to grow tomatoes. Marcus? Yes? I am glad you are a terrible liar. What do you mean? If you had been better at hiding who you really were, I never would have known that humans are capable of such incredible things. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. Marcus squeezed her hand. That might be the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Really? Well, I have spent most of my adult life around military personnel. Our idea of romance is pretty limited. Zixara laughed. I will have to teach you about proper courtship customs then. I would like that, Marcus said. Though I should probably teach you about human customs too. Such as? Such as the fact that on Earth, when a man loves a woman, he often gives her flowers he has grown himself. Marcus stopped walking and picked a small bouquet of flowers from one of his garden beds. They were simple earth daisies, nothing like the exotic plants that filled the rest of the palace grounds. Zixara, he said formally, I know our marriage started as a political arrangement, but I want you to know that somewhere along the way, it became real for me. For me too, she said. accepting the flowers dot as they continued toward the greenhouse, hand in hand. Zixar realized that she had gotten exactly what she wanted from her marriage, a deeper understanding of humanity. She just had not expected to learn that humans were capable of hiding such depths behind such simple surfaces. The galaxy was about to discover the same thing.